I'm going to record this this little example here. Let me see, is it recording? All right, so it is recording. All right, so here, just to sort of revise this here for those that are watching the recording here. So Augusto has done, may I show this, Augusto?
Sure, Professor. I don't know what's going on, what's happening with the sound.
Oh, are you not able to hear me?
I don't know. I can't hear you. I don't know what the other guys see if they can hear the sound.
Oh,
can you hear the sound?
Can you hear us, Kayla and Mary Carmen? You cannot hear us.
I can hear you. I can't hear the sound on the video.
Oh, no, that's okay. I can get my point across with this here. So look, this is the thing that Augusto is doing, and I'm suggesting to him some ways of getting like more realistic fish than this stuff over here. So what I took here is I took a little picture of an angelfish that I just found somewhere on the internet. And this was actually a PNG. So all I did here was I took the proportions of the PNG, or you can edit it in Photoshop, and I built a plane to that amount with the PNG here. I just used my cut tool. In fact, let me just put that on here. So let's find the Blinn 1. Let's say this is our fish, right? And one of the tools that I use to model this really quick here is in my tool settings, I have this option here to preserve the UVs. So by doing that, you see you can edit the size of this stuff that you want without really changing too much of the coordinates here. So I like this, So and then here, all I really did here was to just sort of like model this according to what it was I needed here. So let's say in here, you did this. I'm not going to model this whole thing here, but just to get the point across here, we could do something more or less like that and just eventually wind up with something like this. So basically, that's what I did here with this. Oh yeah, and then one final thing here, it's like once you have enough of this going here, which I do not here in this example, but to show you my point here, at some point, I'm going to grab these little middle vertices, and I'm going to move them up, but not just moving them up with this. I'm going to use my soft selection, and that with enough resolution here in the center, you can puff up the photo here a little bit so it feels a little bit more three-dimensional. And you don't even have to get that crazy. It just a little bit will get that a little more three-dimensional here. And so this is kind of what I wound up here in this quick exercise. I did not spend much time modeling this, but I'm not terribly concerned because this object here is meant to be seen at a certain distance here. Now, what we're going to do here with this is I'm going to animate this, and I am not going to rig it. You could, Augusto, you could rig it depending on what you needed to do with the fish here. But check this out here. So let's take this guy, and I'm going to just call this angelfish. Right? And most important thing now, okay? The most important thing is, why is that over here? The most important thing is that we freeze our transforms once you decide where this fish is going to be. And I think I'm going to take some time to adjust where I want that center of gravity to be here. So I'm going to move that pivot back, and then I'm going to snap him to the world at center here, right? And I like that position a lot. I'm going to go here to modify, and I'm going to freeze those transformations that are over here by doing this. And that makes this the default position for this object here. So the next thing that I think I want to do here let's think about, so we can do a couple different things. Let me make a copy of this here. So let's call this here. I'm going to call this angelfish 1. And let's do this simple one here. So I'm going to take the deformer here, and this goes a long ways here. So if I take the deformer here, I'm going to use this one called the sine, right? And the sine will do this sort of thing. It gets you this line going up and down. What it really does is it gives you a little wave, okay? So I'm going to show you what it does here. You turn up the amplitude here, so it gets you this little wave here, which is great. However, it's not quite exactly what we need. So I'm going to take this sine handle here. I'm going to flip it around this way. And I'm going to flip it around this way. So let's see, that's minus 90. Is this 90? And yeah, and that should work. Right, there we go. That is almost what we need. Let's turn it down just a little bit. So let's say 0.25. Yeah, that goes a long way. So 0.15. And then wavelength here. Well, sure. And the wavelength here. And then the offset, you can just have it sort of animate in like this. You know, here, wavelength, let's call that 1. Oh. Okay. What did I have that set to before? Okay, 2, and then the amplitude here, let's call it 0.15. Let's see what that gives me here. If I just animate the offset, yeah, that's not a whole lot. Yeah, it's not bad. See, Augusto? So with this, if I were to animate this here, for example, let's take a key selection here on frame 1, and then frame 120. Let's give that. If I said 10, let's try 30. Let's see what that gives us here. So I can just play this forward here, and I'm getting this sort of thing. And just like we did with the motion paths here, you can animate that thing here. And then on top of that, if you really did want a motion path, you could animate it, or you could, you know, you could, oh, I don't know, you could animate it by hand, which could be kind of fun. You know, if you wanted to add some extra control to this while you have it here, I'm going to go here to deformer. Let's go to nonlinear, and we can do a bend, right? And the bend, that's also going to give you a line pointing upwards. I'm going to take it this way here, and let's activate it just so we can see what it does. Okay, this guy, yeah, there you go. This is what it's supposed to do here. So I think with this, what I would rather do here is just get rid of the high bend, and that gives me the ability to sort of, you know, just do fine tune like the direction of the fish here if you wanted it to. So this is like an offset here. So with all this stuff here, I can group this in my angel fish rig or quick rig, whatever group, and we can, yeah, I think we can animate this here. Let's do this. Check this out here. So with this, I'm going to make a cycle. Okay, so this is something I want to be infinite here. So I'm going to take this bend, not the bend handle, but the sine handle, and let's go into the animation editors. And have we talked about cycles here? No. So, all right. So I'm going to take the offset curve, right? This is just the animation curve, and this is all I have here. It's just moving from one value to another. And in fact, we can, I think we could even just get rid of the slow in and slow out because we want this to be constant, you know? So in here, the only thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go here to curves, and I'm going to go post infinity. And so that means when it hits the last thing, I'm going to cycle that. In fact, you know what? Let's go here, cycle with offset. So it's going to pick up from that value and keep going on that curve here forever. So here, you know, no matter what, so I'm going beyond 120 frames now, and I can just do this, and it's just going to keep going and going and going forever. So you could even animate some sort of behavior in there. And now let's go ahead and save this because it's kind of getting interesting here. And Maya is really great for crashing on my computers. It's awesome. So here, let's call this fish. Actually call it fish for school, get it? So in here, yeah, okay, so we could do this a couple different ways. And one, you know, the first way obviously is I could just animate this here. So that from here, you know, I could just have it move, you know, something like that. And that gets us that little fish here. and he's moving along however we want here. Or I could put it along a motion path, which could be kind of interesting here. And the motion path would be something like, let's take this. In fact, with this, if I do a motion path, I think what I would kind of like here is I would like to put this in another group here. Let's call this motion path, call it angelfish motion path offset group. The reason I'm calling it an offset here, because this is kind of what it's going to do, I'm going to put this, in, here's the thing. I'm giving the control of the offset group, I'm giving that to the motion path. So if I go over here to, let's go to curves, and I'm going to do this sort of thing here. I don't know, maybe something like that. If I do something like that, let's take this here, and I'm just going to put this on a motion path. And like you guys have seen now, I mean, you guys are familiar with the motion path here. What you can do here is just, you go to constrain, right? Oh, no wonder. So I'm going to go to animation and then constrain, and I'm going to choose the motion path here, and let's just attach it to a motion path. And by default, what it wants to do here is it goes to the start and to the end. And he's doing a moonwalk fish. So let's flip him around here. I'm going to take that motion path here, and I'm going to flip this on the front. Is it a front twist? No, not the front twist, but the up twist. I'm going to flip that around 180 degrees. And I get this sort of thing here where he's doing his thing and just going around. So we could animate it that way here. And now what's cool about this setup here is like within this thing, look, this is the thing that's attached to the motion path. And you can see it's colored yellow here. So that means there's no way that I can control it, because no matter what, it's going to snap back to where it's supposed to be on the motion path. However, if we open up, I mean, that I knew that was going to happen. So I put it, I put our fish inside that thing, and now I still have our fish in here. So if we want to, in here, I still have control of this where, if I wanted to do a little offset along that motion path here, I can just go in here, and maybe in here, I'll put in a little, an extra little frame here. Is it pivot point? Yeah, that's the pivot point. So in here, for example, I have this sort of thing here. And so we have them rise up. And then here we could have them, go back down here, for example. And then here, I could just zero out this, this transform here, and he goes back to where he's supposed to be. And then, on top of all that here, I have this layer maybe of the, where did we put it here? Let's open up the little quick rig here. I have that bend handle that I can still animate, like as he moves up right here. I could take the bend and we could animate it so it looks like his fins are doing this here. And then here, maybe if we wanted to sort of throw that up here, you do the reverse. And all it is really is just a little photograph. It's a little photograph we put on a PNG plane. And I applied a sine deformer and then a bend deformer to get this extra control here. So like this, maybe you could just be like the direction, like if he's going up or down. Use it sparingly so that you don't get too much distortion. And it's going to look, I don't know, for not a lot of effort, I think it's going to look okay. Certainly for like maybe like a little background thing in your animation, Augusto, this is going to look pretty 3D compared to those little After Effects cutouts that we had here. Now here's another thing that we could do. So let me get this guy out of here. So I'm going to press, first of all, let's delete the animation. So I'm going to just double click this, delete that, and let's Shift P, unparent this. Let me see if Maya is going to crash again. All right, there we go. Okay, so here, now we're back to where we were. Let's get rid of this. I don't need this anymore. This, okay, let's try something else with this. This gets kind of interesting. If I can do it here. We've done this sort of thing here. And yeah, let's try this out here. So this is really interesting too. And if I were to use this, I probably wouldn't even need the bend deformer here, because what the idea is for this, it's going to deform this object along that path. However, there might be a conflict of that with the sign deformer. So I'm going to have to figure out if, you know, if I want to do that, I'll figure out a way to do that here. I didn't try that yet, but I can play around with it later. What we can do here, let's create a mesh network, because I want to show you guys kind of an interesting thing here. Let's create a map here. First of all, I'm going to create a mesh network with this. And I'm going to take this little guy here and press that. So I've got a mesh network, right? And they're all doing your little thing, School of Fish. Let's open up the mesh editor. We have the very first one, that's a mesh distribute. And then in here, and here's the cool thing, Augusto. So like if you had different fish, if I took the time to make different fish, I could make, I could attach an ID node here. And so I would create this network with all those fish selected, and then I would have like varieties of them. And the ID would help me identify the unit number or the member number. And I could give it like variety and randomness and stuff. This thing is really great for all sorts of things. One of the things, the reason I pulled this up here is I have, is this it? Yeah, this is it. I have this thing, which gets kind of interesting here. And this gets, it gets you sort of a flocking behavior. You're gonna have to fiddle around with it here, but basically it creates a little sort of a simulated environment here that you can play around with here. You might want to try that out, you might not. You're gonna have to play around with the settings here to see what it does. But the point is, it creates a little simulation here where, how would I say it? Flocking, I call them boids sometimes. This is basically sort of like a school of fish. Like you have like behaviors too, where some will follow the other, or they have obstacle avoidance and all that stuff. You do have some things that you want to play with here to sort of fine tune that behavior. Here you are. See the separation strength, alignment strength, all that stuff. So you're gonna have to fiddle around with some of this stuff to make it work, but it can be done and it can be kind of interesting. So if at the very least, give this a try. Maybe if this is something you want to experiment, and that can get you with a sort of a school of fish really easily here. If you want with that. So maybe I'll just pause the video here and I'll try to sort of figure this out, like to make it look right, and then just put that up there as well. So yeah, that's an example there of the school of fish, which might be kind of interesting. So far, you have a couple different ways of animating it. You can animate it if it's just a couple of fish. I would say you just use the thing I said, like with the two deformers. A sign deformer. And with the sign deformer, go into the graph editor, make yourself a loop, and make it cycle past what does it call it? Cycle post infinity. For the bend, you probably want to animate that by hand, and I'm using the bend to sort of steer it like up and down, because for this guy's behavior here, he just sort of wiggles from the side to side. So the other direction I want this guy to go in here is this. And I bet if I do this, I guess, let's try this out here. Oh yeah, see? So this is universal on all those members here. So I could do that if that's, if that's what I want. So this is like the original. And then once I create what you call the repro mesh in Match, it makes like an instance of all that stuff here. And I can get like, Match is a really sort of a powerful thing that gets you ways to control lots of other little objects here pretty easily. So at the very least, I would suggest that you take a look at it here. So you'll have this video here, maybe to guide you along with with this, I'll point you towards some other resources afterwards here. But you know, that's one way. The easier way here, let's get rid of the repro mesh here. And the easier way here would probably be to just, you know, just animate this by hand. Of course, you're not going to have as many fish. And you know, you can have some different things like that. So that's kind of maybe kind of an interesting way for you to do fish. Let me just pause this video here. Or I'm just going to stop it. Okay. All right. So how about the rest of you guys? What do you guys have here? If I export it, does it have transparency? What do you mean export it, Augusto? How are you going to export it?
And can you please export the fish that you did to know if how it works in Photoshop, how it opens in Photoshop?
No. You're not going to export it in you're not going to do the same here. You're going to render it, right? So you're going to set a camera, and you know what you see here is what you get in the render, and that's how we're going to see this. So like if you want this in Photoshop, you're going to have to make an image.
Right. That's
you know, just is what?
That's the issue. How can I figure out if I'm going to work that one in Maya?
Mm-hmm.
How can I export the fish to Photoshop, retouch it with color, and then export it from Photoshop to After Effects to continue with the animation?
No, that's not terribly hard. No, I bet what you could do is you could just plan it out here. So like, I mean, here, let's take a look.
Professor, we can see your screen.
You cannot, or you can?
I cannot.
Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
All right, so I guess, you know, this is it, and I bet, you know what, you have a storyboard, and so we could look at this. I don't know, Augusto, I would make it more interesting, you know, I would make it like, we could make a whole sort of a thing where this angel, let's say, you know, let's make a camera here. All right, so let's see what this gives us here. So this gives me a camera here. Let's take a little angelfish guy here. You know what I like to do also when I'm rendering these things in terms of an animation, you guys? Right. A lot of times I've done things like this where well, let's do this. And then here, let's say this is camera 1, and then this is my perspective. I love something like this because what this lets me do here is I can take this and sort of bring it out here, you know, and then here, let's give this this sort of thing here. Wow, that's pretty big. Yeah, I wish I had a bigger screen, but I do. It's just that you guys won't be able to see it here. But I could put this on the other monitor here, or you know, or we can rip this part off here. So you could just take this here, panels, tear off, and that gets me this. And then from here, you can sort of resize this here so that you can see this however you want. And then in here, you know, I'm just going to go in and play with this here. There we go. So here, you know, let's see. I could just do an animation here where, you know, this guy is coming in here. So what are we dealing with? We're 24 frames per second, so maybe 2 seconds. Let's call this 50 frames. Here's another trick for you. If you hold down K, right, and then just scrub through this, you press your mouse button and just scrub through that timeline here, you know, you're going to get this sort of stuff here. I don't know. And you can make this look better here, Augusto. You know. And you could even control the sign and all that stuff if you wanted to. Like I've actually set this up as a an animation, like an endless animation. So I've lost control of that, but you could keep it free, and then you could animate like each separate little thing for it here, and you could do something like that pretty easily. And what I would just do here, Augusto, is I would just maybe make these little loops here, and let's see what that gives me here. You know, so from here, I could just make a little loop of this sort of stuff here, and maybe animate like little layers and things of them, and or you know, or groups of them here together, and you know, and then just overlay that as like little pieces of your composition in After Effects, and you're going to get something kind of interesting going. And this was all done with a PNG, so it's, you know, it's kind of cool. And then from here, all you have to do really is to just render this out with you know, your renderer, whatever it is, Arnold or whatever. And then of course, like I would render it so that, you know, you could do some color correction in After Effects to match the mood of your piece. But yeah, that's kind of how I would approach this. So to answer your question, no, I would not. You don't export this as a 3D object, because first of all, it's just not going to work with all the deformers. You can't export the deformers out of Maya. If you wanted to do that, I think your best bet would be to just animate it with bones, but still Photoshop and After Effects are not going to. I'm sorry, Photoshop isn't going to accept. It's not going to accept bones, I think. No, well, no, yeah, it will. Yeah, it will.
Professor, another question.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, imagine if I'm going to create the whole project in Maya
Mm-hmm.
with the divers, with the texture, with the environment.
Mm-hmm.
How can I export the whole project in Maya? Because the project is gonna be heavy.
No. You don't understand what I'm saying. You don't export the whole project in Maya. You render it out, and then you
Sorry, for rendering. So if I'm going to create the texture, the water, all that stuff in Maya, so you have to render the whole project. So that means that I have to. How can I? My question is a little complex, because
Okay.
for instance, I have to create one layer for the divers, another layer for the fish, another one for the dolphin.
Exactly.
So that one is going to be a heavy project. How can
Sort
I
of.
handle?
Yeah. It's going to be heavy because of the resources you're going to use, Augusto. But in the end, yeah, it's going to be heavy. It's going to be heavy. It's going to look much better. Like in terms of, if you want 3D, you're going to get 3D. Yeah, Augusto. I don't know what to say. Like it's a complex. You're saying it's a complex question. Well, it's a somewhat complex answer depending on how complex you want it to get. You know. But I mean, you're absolutely right. That's what it is, and it's going to give you more 3D realism than what After Effects can give you.
Because right now, raise up another question is dealing with Maya and After Effects and Maya and Photoshop. If I want to create more projects in the future, I love Maya. I have to work really hard with Maya, but my concern is if I want to create something in 3D in Maya, I want to export it to create more cinematic, something more cinematic in After Effects. So it's gonna be maybe a conflict between the 3D Maya and After Effects. That's my concern. Maybe with transparencies, with backgrounds, with lights. I don't know, with textures. I don't know if
I get it.
Read it. That's my concern.
Let me try to simplify the answer here. So let me put it this way in the best way possible here. After Effects does a lot of cool things, and After Effects is experimenting with 3D, but it doesn't really do 3D yet, not officially, you know, not like this. You can do a lot of things. It'll take things from Cinema 4D and things like that, but even there, it's really, really heavy. So it doesn't do 3D as efficiently as Maya. So, okay, so just to summarize my answer here, just forget After Effects does 3D in this way. And what you're going to get from Maya is you do your 3D in Maya and you render it out as you always have. Render it out as PNG sequences, as with or anything with transparency, you know, and then just give that over to After Effects, and you do your After Effects compositing in there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's not the answer you wanted, I know, because you wanted something
No, because
simpler.
yeah, this is my concern because if I want to create a project in Maya,
Mhm.
I have to begin and finish on Maya. That's I prefer to work everything in Maya from the beginning until the end. And then
Um,
if I want to add something more cinematic or something like that, I can use After Effects or Premiere. But I can realize that if I want to start something in Maya, definitely, I think the suggestion is finishing only in Maya.
sure. I
Don't
mean,
try
you
to,
can do that too, Augusto. Wow, I wish I was, because I was just talking about this week. Let me see if I can find this here, because I had this old magazine that I was organized in
because
my office here.
because
Go ahead.
you see, for instance, the affinity between After Effects and Photoshop, Photoshop Premiere, After Effects Illustrator, so they can work together without conflict.
Yes. So After Effects. How did you put After Effects, Illustrator, and Photoshop, and all that
Exactly,
stuff? Yeah,
exactly.
but none of those do really 3D. You know, none of them
Yeah.
do 3D, right?
In Photoshop, you can do 3D. And
Yeah.
then export it
You
to After Effects, but not
you
like
know
Maya.
you can do 3D sort of, but not exactly. Um, um, Listen. What I wanted to show you here was this. You guys have seen this film. I wish I could find the article. I had an article with the guys that talked about how this was done here, but this is 3D, believe it or not. You know, and this
Mhm.
is when did this movie come out? It was like 2004, 2005 or something, right? Yeah, I love Ghibli. Just like everything, pretty much like everything they do is really cool. But the reason I brought this up here is, you know, this is a sort of a really painterly looking thing, and then you got this really big. Let's give this a look to see what this is. If this is the article. I had an article somewhere in an old magazine when this came out, and they were talking about it was a rig. It was a 3D rig, you know, and it had IK and it had all that stuff in there. And they were animating it that way. Another thing that you would be surprised, you would be so surprised at the amount of 3D that goes into it, is South Park, you know, and South Park. There's a lot of 3D in those little puppets, you know, and you would never think. I think it started out, you know, simple, but you have all that stuff animated in 3D. So there's a lot of stuff going on that you would think is 2D, Augusto, but in reality, it's just a bunch of like planes and things that are rigged onto bones, and they're just behaving like a puppet. And then from there, they render it out, and then they do things in that way. What you could do, Augusto, for what you're talking about is you could set up your let's see, you could set up your world, like, you know, maybe you have a hill, or not a hill, but a little thing in here. I'm going to point this towards the camera, and just like you would in After Effects here, you know, that's like a physical thing here. And so this little fish guy here could sort of go over that and hide behind things, and that's actually sort of 3D space. you just work with it this way here. What I would say, if you do this here, then probably what would be the best, especially if you have lighting already, okay? The best way to work with this here, if you don't want Maya's lighting to interfere, work with a surface shader. And that's just going to be, the surface shader is just the color of the color of the pixel, and that's it. You know, you won't have anything else. So you won't have lights and anything else. So yeah, Augusto, listen, don't stress it. It's not, I mean, it is more complicated than just like, you know, than just like
Yes, it is.
Photoshop project. It's what?
It is complicated. It's a little complicated.
Well, it is complicated. I thought you said, I thought you said it's complicated. No, it's 3D, and
it's 3D.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not going to argue with that, but it really is. As wonderful as it is, it's complex, you know.
Yeah, it is complex.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it just is that, and at some point, you know, you don't stress it. You know, when you get used to it, I think you'll figure it out. It's not that bad. Let's see. How about you guys? The rest of you guys. Let's see where I put you guys. Chat. There you are. How the rest of you guys coming with your stuff? Anything I can answer for you guys? Professor, I appreciate the tutorial. Remember when she told us can work with the programs. Yeah, exactly, Augusto. So I'm not contradicting that. I'm just saying that there's programs that are better at certain things than others. You know, I was just pointing out, I love this. You know, I love the mood. I really love the mood. I sincerely love the mood of this stuff here. Just the thing is, I'm not really getting a 3D feel from these fish. There's certain parts of this that feel like, what did you use, the puppet warp here?
Yeah, and also I have to work with the color correction. Because it was gray, like pale gray, something like that.
Yeah, you know what? But I really do like that. The color is great on this guy. Let me see what it is. There's something about it. It's the animation.
And also, I would like to create the fish. I work maybe to create more volume in Photoshop. Maybe using the brushes, get more illusion like in 3D, something like that.
These guys came out great. I love this.
Yeah, and also, yeah, I worked really hard to create that effect, the font.
I like these guys too. Whatever you did here, these two little guys, the clownfish, they really work for me here. You know what I would kind of love to see here, Augusto? As we come in here, could you, this is just a 2D layer?
Yeah, and also with this one, I did that one in Photoshop. It's a little flat, but I use the effect in After Effects to create that sensation of movement.
I love that, yeah. I'm wondering.
Because, for instance, if you're going to create that one in Photoshop, I have to use too many frames. to create that movement. But in After Effects, with three effects and filters, you can create that illusion.
Yeah. I wonder though, could you break this up into some different comps and maybe just sort of zoom us in? Like, could you do this, like, pretend it's like 3D space, maybe? Would that be kind of interesting to sort of zoom us in and just settle us into this little stage?
So to create more comps, to create more.
If you can, it'd be cool. It would be cool to see the camera sort of fly in from below and then just sort of land here, and stuff goes on, and the title comes up. Maybe, and that's why I was saying, like, maybe the camera comes in, we can see that little fish come in here and disappear behind this rock, for example.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
You know, and you could even do that in 3D. And what I would do, Augusto, if that's the case, you know, give them a render here that's not, you know, you could color, I bet you could color correct this.
Yeah, for instance, I like what you did in Maya.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and also I know that we can use textures in Maya and, and everything. But this is my concern is if I'm going to start the project in Maya, I have to finish it in Maya.
No, that's not true at all.
Yeah,
that's certainly not true.
For
in fact,
rendering from Maya and then continue working in After Effects. That's
no. Listen, Augusto, that is so not true because I mean, for so many reasons. Well, to start with, Maya doesn't do anything except animation. You know, as much as animation is, it does all of animation, but it does only animation. You know, and so even the sound, there's no real way you can do sound in Maya.
Right.
You're just using it to line it up. You know, to line it up so you can animate to it. You're going to have to render all that stuff and put it together in whatever you want. And I'm not kidding. Like, there's so many different programs that are used with Maya. It's just one piece of the puzzle. And that is a very complex puzzle depending on what you're doing. But, you know, it's just the way it goes. And so, like, getting back to, I think, our previous conversation here in a little while back, I mean, that's kind of one of the big differences there between, you know, a certain kinds of animation where it's just, you're trying to, you know, where it's the turnaround time is a little faster versus some of the more professional things. I don't mean it to sound that way, but like some of the more complex things, they have more things and more parts involved in it here. And it's just kind of the way it goes. And you would be surprised at, well, the number of things that go into something with this here. So for example, I worked at a company that did the animations on Maya, and then they had the thing so integrated into the system that they had a whole shelf for certain things. And when, you know, there was a different department here that dealt with the lighting and things, and I would press a button to render, and it would send it off to the render farm, and then the lighters would get the latest animations that we did, and you know, they would do their work on that, and pretty soon, I mean, you know, if I wanted a preview, I could just do it myself, but you know, they would get that stuff and send it down the pipeline, and they had, well, the cool thing is they had it automated where like I could see a preview with their latest work, you know, by the time I came back from lunch, and it would run it through all sorts of different all sorts of different programs, including, what was that thing they used? No, it wasn't Houdini. It was something else that did. Yeah, and it did a sort of compositing program, but it was a node-based compositing program, and so you know, it looked really great by the time it came out. But the point is like there's so many little programs involved here, like even after all this stuff of animation here, you know.
Oh, Professor, talking about the projects and programs, I have another question. I have a little trouble with the size of the file because it was so heavy. The size of the file, the weight. because it was so heavy. I don't
Mhm.
know if is there any way to compress the file to upload in Canvas. Is there any
Oh,
software to compress huge projects?
the size of the Maya file you're saying, or the zip file?
Yeah. No, when I finish up my
Yeah.
file, I create the
Mhm.
video, so it was huge.
Oh, yeah.
So I couldn't upload it in Canvas. I have to request assistance from the IT department, and then they require me. They say, okay, we can help you with this, but try to compress your files.
Listen, you couldn't just render it out as an MP4 with the H.264 format.
Yeah, MP4.
Yeah, and yeah, but H.264 compression with an MP4, that's not that big and it looks pretty good.
All right, so I have to do that before rendering the video in
Yeah, send it to the Media Encoder queue. Let me see if I can fire that up.
Encoding. Yeah. So before creating the render, I have to set up the size of the file quality
Um,
in Media
well, I'll
Encoder.
show you. I'm not sure what you mean here, but I'm going to fire up a Media Encoder and get that here. So here, I'll go. So let's say we took your file here.
Mm-hmm.
See, it's bringing it in. Yeah, there you go. So here, just save it as an H.264 format, right?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay, and then just render it out, and it's still pretty big.
Yeah, it's pretty big.
Mm.
When I use the compress software from my computer, it did, but not really much
Mm.
because the size is 60 GB, I guess.
Mm.
No, MB, I guess.
MB.
Yeah, MB. And
45. I'm getting 45 on mine.
it's and then it's 45.
Mm-hmm.
I expected maybe 20 or 10, something like that.
Mm. I'm sorry. You're saying your size is 20 megabytes.
The original was 55 MB,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and right now it's 45 because I use
Oh, you use the compression.
the compression.
Yeah, that sounds about right. What you can do, Augusto, I guess, is you can lower the size of it, and it'll be smaller.
Yeah, that's another option.
Yeah. What resolution are you doing? And even in Media Encoder, you see here it's matching the source, so it means like where it's coming from in After Effects, it's going to match the source. So I'm getting, look, it's 1920 by 1080. That's pretty high resolution.
Right. Yeah.
You could scale it down.
Yeah, that's another option.
Yeah, but I would keep it at this. I would, if anything, you can scale it down afterwards. And certainly don't scale it down in After Effects. You can always scale it down here in Media Encoder. So once this is it's here, you could just scale it down. So match source here. You see, that's what it's doing here. If you don't want to match the source, you can give it a new thing here. So instead of 1920, you can make it, oh, I don't know, like 500, right? Okay. And there it is at 500 by 280, and it's going to be a lot lighter. So you can do that.
The same quality?
If it's going to be the same quality, for that size, yeah. Let me
Right.
just unplug this here so I can get the lights. But for that size, Augusto, yes.
All right, yeah, it works.
All right. So, yeah, how about the rest of you guys? How are you guys doing with stuff? I'm working on the motion path for the plane right now, but I'm good so far. Okay, yeah, sure thing. The other two of you guys, Malcolm and Mary Carmen, working on UV mapping for what? Are you UV mapping, Mary Carmen? Oh, the house. Okay. Grading UVs for your characters. You have characters? Yeah, just two. Okay. All right. Yeah, just let me know if there's something that I can go over with you guys, or if I can, I can help you, or if I can point you in the right direction somewhere, and we will go from there. So, like, yeah, if unless there's any more questions, then I think maybe I'll just leave it at this, and I'll meet you guys next class.
All right, Professor. Thank you so much. Appreciate
right.
your feedback and your.
No worries. Oh, and Augusto, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I wanted to answer your question. I found the questions interesting and stuff. I don't mean to like complicate things, and I'm not trying to find problems with stuff. I think you've done an excellent job so far. But, I'm just saying there's certain things, and there's certain things that can be, that it's not like they can be done better. It's just there's certain tools that can do things better, And so I guess like what I want to leave you with too is just like, don't be scared of all that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, Kayla, certainly I'll put that up because I thought that was that's Augusto there. I thought that was an interesting example. So I brought it up. That's why I brought it up. But yeah, don't you guys be scared of what seems like it's very complex. It just is. It's 3D.
Right.
But as you learn to deal with it, it's just it becomes less technical and it becomes like more play in some ways. Yeah. I will, Malcolm. Sorry, sometimes I may be sorry if I am forgetting about you because it's a different course, but I will be sure to post it on the advanced Canvas as well. All right.
All right.
So,
Thank you, Professor. I'll see you on Thursday.
all right. Thank you, guys. I'll see you later.